culture and business functions. We just talked about culture, about how the relationships evolve around that. Let's talk about the business functions, since we're talking about business itself. Culture can have a dramatic impact on it as you go through. In marketing, there's differences in attitudes and values across the market. Even when you sit down and go look at detergents, the aspect of what one country, the people are used to having this versus having this as you go through. A lot of studies happen in marketing to make certain you're bringing a good product to that particular market. What sells here in the United States may not sell where in another culture as you go through, because people have different standards by the time it's done. That I want to hand do this one because it's not clean until I do it myself. You know, attitudes like that versus people that go through and they have it over here, and no, that's the wrong tone as you go through the process. So people have different aspects, and it all relates to product design, advertising, and pricing. Let's use this as one example of marketing as to how different things can be. Here's Pie Time, and here's Domino's Pizza in Japan. This is the menu. Here in the United States, this menu wouldn't fly no matter what, except for a couple. They're pretty good. Okay, sukiyaki, beef with yolk sauce and onion, shrimp mayonnaise, mayo jaga, crab gratin, basil eggplant on top of a pizza. Okay, it sells in Japan. Maybe there's something good about it. Garlic beef ribs with green pepper on it. And frankly, I'd like to try this one, the seafood special. So that being said, those are pizza toppings in Japan. These toppings, you might have a small audience in the United States pursuing this, but for us, the majority of these wouldn't sell in a United States store, and they may not sell also in a European store, but they customize their product to meet the needs and attitudes and acceptance of the population that they're selling to. They're modifying their product to meet the needs. In Malaysia, you get chicken strips and porridge with onions, ginger, and shallots. At McDonald's, yes. Mexico, the McQueso burger. It's actually really good in the process. Egypt, the kofta burger. I've had one of them. It's a very different flavor than anything that's over here, but frankly, it's pretty tasty. Japan, you have a teriyaki burger topped with an egg. Okay, in Germany, if you want to have a burger, you get a beer. In France, if you want a burger, you get a glass of wine. In Israel, they have to have kosher kitchens, one for dairy, one for meat products as they go through. So you'll see different aspects of companies as they go through. I spent some time in Cairo several years ago. And frankly, I was a little bit surprised in downtown Cairo, one of the hot spots to go through and have a date with somebody was, and you could see the Mercedes S-classes lined up outside the buildings of Kentucky Fried Chicken. To that culture at that moment in time, it may be different today, but at that time, Kentucky Fried Chicken was a hot place to go to. Then everybody was hopping all around it. It was a big place. The only place bigger than that was Pizza Hut. Two American restaurants sitting out as franchises right smack dab in the middle of downtown Cairo were some of the most popular places at that moment in time. Place for romance? Hey, Pizza Hut, why not? As you go through. Harley Davidson, yes, you can buy your own Harley Davidson cigarettes. But wait a minute, Harley Davidson makes motorcycles, not cigarettes, except they license their label out to Japan, and a Japanese company that makes cigarettes slap the Harley Davidson label on it, and every time they sell a pack, Harley Davidson gets a cut. Why? Because Japanese think Harley Davidson is cool, not bad, pretty good. I shouldn't use that because cool is a different brand for cigarettes. Forgot. Okay, so that being said, Harley Davidson cigarettes, they really make a big thing. Here, they would never gain traction. As a matter of fact, smoking all by itself wouldn't sit down and have any traction here whatsoever. Here's a couple other things. Brand Fly and Leather, except in Spanish, it's Fly Naked. They've had a couple problems with that. Yellow Pages in the subway. They had a subway poster as they go through. No, not subway like in the subs, but subway like the subway as it goes through. They had the bibimbap, a rice dish, and they had a picture of noodles on it. Duh. Okay, as you go through Nike, they had a woman's sports gear, traditional Samoan tattoo on it, and on the bottom as they went through, except the PA, that tattoos reserved for men. So they're putting a man's thing on a woman's garment. It may not mean much here in the United States, but in the Pacific Islands, it was really very difficult to sell, and they had to pull it back off the market. Pringles, they promoted a bacon-flavored chip for Ramadan. Excuse me, okay, does bacon fit in with the Arab culture diet whatsoever? No. Okay, so they made a huge blunder, advertisements going along. In Turkey, you can't cross your arms when facing somebody. In the Middle East, you never shake hands with your left hand. It's not only considered unclean, them is fighting actions that take place as you go through. In India, don't pet anybody's head. Leave their soul alone, because that's where it's kept in the process. In Brazil, if you start a meeting on time, hey, you got a problem. What's your problem? You're pushing everything. We like to start meetings a little bit later. And by the way, don't talk business during a meal. Wait until the very end. We'll have drinks and then we'll talk afterwards as you go through. When you travel abroad, you have to know cultural differences. You look at marketing. There's so many different things that if you're not paying attention, you can sit down and blow up a deal because of the fact that you did something wrong and you never knew about it in the process as you go through. In human resources, there's a role in motivating and evaluating employees. Okay, what is authority understood? Is the manager the person, the patron, or the first among equals, or are they above, are they below? Do you treat your employees that work with you, do you treat them as I am above you? Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not as you go through. Learn the culture where you're at, because you may do something inappropriate as you go through. What about production and procurement? When you're obtaining something, is it expected for you to negotiate? Frankly, in a lot of countries, it really is. And if you don't, it's almost an insult, but you also may pay a lot more money in the process, like probably 200 or 300% more sometimes. It depends how you go through. Do you have a linear assembly line, or do you have a group-oriented pattern? Sometimes groups get things done better, and you actually have a higher quality product as you go through. What about social relations or reliance on price as you go through? Do you insult somebody when you want to negotiate something? What about the aspect of, hey, I got my uncle, my cousin, someone over here, let me give him a call. Sometimes you have to let them go through the process and not make a decision until that process is complete as you go through. What's the matter? You don't trust me? You don't trust the figures I'm turning in? I'm insulted, insulted. I will never again work here again, and I will tell my family to stop coming. By the way, those kind of conversations happen. Be careful about accounting when you take controls. Don't make the assumption that people are this or that. You want to sit down there and make certain you listen before you implement as you go through. Loose controls, as we suggest people ask honestly, even without close monitoring, but sometimes you need to have those controls because maybe their culture is how much can you cheat the organization as you go through. Leadership styles, they vary dramatically by the cultures. It depends what's there. Is it hierarchy or ladder relationships? Do you treat everybody that's older as a senior manager as you go through the process, or is it lateral as you go through? Can a regular employee on an assembly line talk to a CEO that's 7 or 8 levels above them? Some cultures it's okay, and some leaders even ask for that type of relationship. Sometimes it's totally inappropriate, and that worker would be fired for approaching that person as you go through. Rise through the ranks, by the way, it's not that uncommon here in the United States. 74% of CEOs, according to data from 2016, show that most CEOs actually come up through the ranks in the process, and we don't really look outside, even though a lot of us really think that's where they come from in the process. So rely to come up through the ranks. You have to be family to sit down and be part of it. What about the communication style? Do you talk to them on email or text? Do you sit down and share the internal secrets of the higher organization outside of a certain circle as you go down? What do you do with the method to deal with conflict? To earn respect in each aspect of the operations, it has to be different from the one that sits in the home office. What flies in Seattle, what flies in LA, what flies in Kansas City may not fly in the middle of Turkey. It may not fly in the middle of France. It may not fly in Italy. It may not fly in Asia, but it might work in Brazil. So be careful about making assumptions as you go through. Different models can reflect poorly, and tight controls can mean lack of trust. Be cautious in the process. Know the culture before you come down heavy and make clear, specific demands. It will be done this way. Make certain it's part of the culture that can be accepted, or maybe you have to sit down and address it in a different way because communication and leader styles vary, very dramatically. Take care.